Okay, so June 25th, 2025, day 30 in the Sean Diddy Combs trial. And wow, some really big moves happened.
Yeah, it was quite today. You had prosecutors suddenly dropping key charges. That alone is major news.
Right. And then almost immediately the defense just rests its case very quickly.
Exactly. So today, we're going to dive into that, unpack what these strategies might mean as we head towards a verdict.
Our aim here is really to help you get a clear picture fast of these crucial shifts and, what the potential fallout could be in this really high stakes situation.
hmm It definitely feels like the ground shifted under everyone's feet on the 25th.
Let's start with the prosecution. We're kind of calling this the shock wave, the strategic streamlining they did. So on that day, June 25th, it looks like federal prosecutors decided to drop charges of attempted kidnapping and attempted arson.
That's right. These were predicates, sort of underlying acts within the larger racketeering conspiracy charge.
So why? Why make that kind of change so late in the game?
Well, the thinking, it seems, is to streamline everything, to really sharpen the focus onto the core allegations: sex trafficking and forced labor.
Ah, okay. Like cutting away the less essential parts.
Precisely. It's a strategic move. They probably felt these particular charges might muddy the waters for the jury. Maybe the evidence wasn't quite as strong or direct linking Combs himself.
Got it. And remind us, what specific incidents were tied to those drop charges?
Those related to testimony from Capricorn Clark, a former employee, about things like alleged forced lie detector tests, and also a confrontation supposedly involving Scott Mescudi Kid Cudi.
Okay.
And even the firebombing of Mescudi's car was part of that predicate.
Yeah.
So by taking those off the table, they're really zeroing in.
Zeroing in on what exactly?
Primarily incidents involving Cassie Ventura Fine. The idea being they can argue sex trafficking happened there, possibly without needing to prove a specific completed commercial sex act in every instance. The law can focus on the coercion aspect, you see.
Right, that makes sense. A tighter narrative for the jury. Okay, so while the prosecution was streamlining, the defense pulled off its own surprise.
Oh, definitely. Let's call that the snapshot. Their strategy was incredibly swift.
Yeah, because on the 25th, they didn't call a single witness. The whole day was procedural stuff, right? Like figuring out jury instructions.
Exactly. The charge conference. And that connects directly back to the day of June 24th, when Diddy's team announced he wouldn't testify.
And they'd already rested their case then.
They had. On the 24th, after a presentation that lasted, what, maybe 20 minutes? Super brief. They decided their cross-examinations of the prosecution's witnesses were enough.
So resting so fast, no witnesses, Diddy doesn't testify.
Mhm.
What does that signal? I mean, legally speaking, is that common?
It is a known tactic, yeah.
Uh-huh.
But in a case that's huge, it's bold,
Mm.
maybe risky. It basically says, we think the prosecution completely failed to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt.
So they're betting everything on the cross-examinations, poking holes in the government story.
That's the gamble. They must feel confident that they created enough doubt during those cross-examinations. It avoids the risks of putting Diddy on the stand, avoids potentially problematic defense witnesses. But, jurors might wonder why they didn't hear directly from him or others.
It's a perception game too, then.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Does it look like confidence or like they have something to hide? That's what the jury has to weigh.
Okay, so these big moves have happened. The prosecution narrows its focus. The defense rests abruptly. What happens now? It feels like we're suddenly racing to the finish line.
We really are.
Yeah.
The stage is set for the final act. Closing arguments are scheduled for June 26th and 27th.
And those are expected to be pretty long, right?
Oh, yeah. Expect at least 4 hours for each side. This is their last chance to tie everything together to make their most persuasive pitch to the jury based on all the evidence presented.
And after closings?
Jury deliberations are set to start June 30th. It's actually possible we could see a verdict before the July 4th holiday.
Wow, that's quick. And the stakes here are just immense.
Immense is the right word. If Sean Combs is convicted on these charges, he's facing a mandatory minimum of 15 years. But it could potentially be life in prison.
15 years minimum.
But even with all the evidence the prosecution put forward, legal analysts, they still point out there's room for reasonable doubt. It's a complex case built on testimony that the defense worked hard to discredit.
So these last-minute strategies, dropping charges, not testifying, it's all about shaping that perception of reasonable doubt.
That's the core of it.
Yeah.
Trying to influence how the jury sees the whole story now that it's been edited, so to speak. by both sides.
So day 30 really was a turning point. Things accelerated dramatically. You've got the drop charges, the defense's quick wrap-up.
It really pushes us into the end game.
And it leaves us with this big question, doesn't it? How does a jury process these kinds of late-stage tactical decisions? Does a streamlined case feel stronger, or does the lack of defense witnesses create more doubt?
That's the million-dollar question, maybe $1 billion in this case. How much weight do they give to what wasn't presented versus what was? It highlights the challenge for the jury in finding that line proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
For the latest in celeb news, no AI fluff, no clickbait, subscribe now.